For my diversity field experience, I looked into what it was like to have anxiety and depression. So, what is depression? According to mentalhealth.net, depression is a mental illness that has a significant effect on a person's ability to function normally, and it is marked by present feelings of sadness, empathiness, worthlessness, and hopelessness. About 15% of adults will experience depression within their lifetime. And according to Mayo Foundation of Medical Education and Research, between 4 to 8% of adolescents currently experience depression, and up to 25% will experience depression by the time they reach the end of their adolescence. There are different types of depression, like premenstrual depression, postpartum depression, seasonal depression, and persistent depression. The different causes are biological difference, brain chemistry, hormones, and inherited traits. So, what is anxiety? According to mental health and the ADAA, the terms of anxiety mean it's an anxiety disorder referring to a specific psychiatric disorder that involve extreme fear and worry and includes generalized anxiety disorder, panic disorder and panic attacks, agoraphobia, social anxiety disorder, selective mutism, separation anxiety, and specific phobias. There are about 44 million adults who are known for having an anxiety disorder. This can be related to the fight or flight instinct that us humans have, and many times anxiety is in relation to other disorders like depression. And it's more and more common now these days that if you have depression, you will also have anxiety. So my project, for my diversity field experience project, I wanted to know what it feels like and how you cope with depression and anxiety together. For this project, I interviewed 3 people from my circle of friends or family, and I also did an online survey for anonymously people to answer my questions. So for my interview questions, I did a couple questions that were just like get to know you questions, and then I did more in-depth questions. So the questions I asked were 3 words that you think describe you. What are your goals in life? When did you find out you have anxiety and depression? How did you find out? Was there a reason why you think your diagnosis came to be? Would you say that having anxiety and depression made it harder for you in school? And are there positive things that came out of your diagnosis and negative things that came out of your diagnosis? So my first subject is a mother and a wife. She described herself as loving, intelligent, and fun. Her goals in her life are to raise an amazing son, to be able to be comfortable in her life, and to be stable in her life. She always knew that she had depression, but she didn't know until her husband left for work, and she realized that she needed help. And this breakdown she had led to her going in and seeing a therapist and getting medication and learning coping techniques. She talked about the different things that happen when you have anxiety and depression and how it's not just one thing, it's always a together thing. She found out that she got it through genetics from her paternal grandma who had it, so it was passed down through her family. And with it being passed down through her family, she is now watching her son for it and hoping that when he gets older, she can express how big of a thing it is and to know what it is. The advice that she gave to me for someone who might have it is don't hold it in, talk to someone. My second subject is an MSU student. They describe themselves as bubbly, dramatic, and quirky. Their life goal is honestly just to be happy. They talked about how they found out when they were 12 years old, and when they attempted suicide, they saw a therapist who officially diagnosed them with anxiety and depression, along with OCD tendencies. They have a family history of it, and their mother has it, but it's not a big thing that they saw in their household, so they didn't really talk about it in their family. With school, their diagnosis made it difficult for them to complete, with having to drop and withdraw classes, and now they are 2 years behind what their educational goal was. Next, we talked about the different coping mechanisms they are. So they're on medication right now, but when the medication isn't helping, they try and distract themselves with doing art projects, coloring or reading, and other things that they can do to keep their mind distracted. They said a positive thing that came out of their diagnosis is that they were able to connect with people who might be going through a rough time. And the advice that they gave was, don't be afraid to ask for help. See a therapist if you are in need to talk to somebody. My third subject is a former MSU student. They describe themselves as socially awkward, studious, and a perfectionist. Their goals are to finish their degree in accounting and find a job using their degree to help people, as in working in like a charity of some sort. They kind of always knew that they had depression. Growing up, their mom had it, so it was passed down through genetics as well. But it was very relevant in their household since their mother had it. Their mom talked a lot about what it is and how to cope with it. And she gave them like a lot of tests, her and her siblings, to make sure that if they had it, they could get help right away and they knew where to go. We talked about how it affected school for them. And so with school, they found out when they were in their 20s. So they were in their program when they found out they had depression and anxiety. And in order for them to focus on themselves, they had to drop out. And hopefully they are planning to go back this fall to finish their degree. Then we talked about the different ways that it affects their life. And they talked about how their boss doesn't always understand that they need a mental health day, or how they seem to be always sick, which is very prevalent in someone who has depression and anxiety. A positive thing that came out of it was being able to understand what others might be going through and being able to give them helpful techniques if they need them. A negative side of their diagnosis is being able to live a normal life and being treated differently than everybody else. The advice that they gave me was, don't be afraid to reach out and talk to others. Find ways that are natural if medication doesn't help, because there's always different ways. For my survey, I did a Survey Monkey and had people enter these answers in anonymously so I could know more. So the questions I had were, do you have anxiety and depression, or both? Are there different ways that your diagnosis affects your daily life? What would you like people to know about your diagnosis? And are there ways that you cope with your diagnosis? So for my project, I interviewed about 25 people. Well, 25 people took my survey. So I had 5 males take it and 25 females take it. I had about 5 people answer that they just have anxiety and 3 people answer that they just have depression. But I had 21 people answer that they had both. So for one of the questions, here are some of my results. Are there different ways that your diagnosis affects your daily life? And the responses I got with these was kind of made me take a stand back and realize that having depression and anxiety affects people in so many different ways than it does you would think. My next question was, what would you like people to know about your diagnosis? And there is one that I posted on here that really made me step by. and realize, step back and just think about it. And it is this last one right here. It is not a weakness nor something I make up for my convenience. It is a daily struggle that it is not my fault or my choice. This chemical imbalance can happen to anyone, and some days I hate those days that I hate those that get to live a life without understanding the unfairness of this disease. The cures or coping mechanisms require constant attention and focus. Taking a medication daily can really affect a person's self-esteem or confidence in dealing with day-to-day life. And the last one was, what are ways that you cope with your anxiety? A lot of people answered that they find someone who is willing to talk to them. And there was also people that answered with saying yoga or just changing their routine so they are able to get through their day if they're having a good day or if they're having a bad day. Okay, so what I learned from doing this project, I learned that getting out of my comfort zone and talking to others about this type of stuff isn't easy, but it is worth it. Doing this project has opened my mind about a few things I didn't know going into this project, like that people I know are affected by this and it's worse than I thought, that there are also a lot more in this world that are affected by it, not just depression and anxiety, but they are also affected by just having one or more, then likely to experience anxiety and depression together. Another thing is that I learned from doing this is that there are so many people out there that need help but don't know where to go or what to do to get help, nor do they know that it is needed and it is deserved and it's part of your humanity to be able to do these things. When I interviewed the 3 different people that I did, they talked about how their family and friends help them get through everything that they have gone through and are still helping them and always there if they need it. Having these relationships is important when having this diagnosis. It is hard for one to gain these with everything they might be going through in their minds, but it is needed. With talking to them, I noticed that they use some of the same techniques, and especially going through my results, there is a lot of the same techniques that are used. I found this very interesting with how a lot of people are the same, but yet there's always differences. I also found interesting that they were from families who it was a pretty relevant thing. And if it wasn't, they knew where to go anyway. Doing the survey, I noticed that a lot of people answered the same. Some people answers were very evident if they received help through a therapist or just family and friends, but it made me want to know who they were if they didn't get help and they didn't know what to do, because that just made me want to put this information out there for them to be able to see it. I would use this information that I learned in my classroom when I become a teacher, knowing that making sure my students know that it is okay and I will always be there for them to talk to if something is going on in their lives, and just to be there for my students if they are going through something like this. This is a quote that I really thought fit with this. Do not let depression defeat you, and do not let the anxiety consume you. You have got this. And those are my references. Thank you.